fishing, it's in my soul.
Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
Hello, Salt Strong Nation. Joe Simons, like diamonds. We are back. Got my good friend, Captain Debbie Hanson. Going to be talking about girls who fish, getting more girls into fishing, talking about pursuing happiness. And if you don't know Debbie, she is awesome. She is a licensed captain, radio host, outdoor writer, fishing guide, and I'm going to throw this one in for you, Debbie. Cover girl. Yep. I saw you on the cover of some magazine down there in Florida, so you're officially a cover girl. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Joe. It is a true pleasure to be here chatting with you today, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. You and I, we spoke at that Florida Outdoor Association, it was 2, maybe 3 years ago now?
I think it's been 3 years. Yeah, the Florida Outdoor Writers Association conference was coming up, and I remember we were getting ready to invite you to come on over as a speaker, and yeah, we had a chat then. So it's great to reconnect with you and talk fishing.
Yeah, it was funny just reflecting back on that. You know, we were on a panel. Basically, we were the panelists, and people were asking us questions, and it was about content. It was about creating online content, kind of the old school versus meaning print. Versus this new school, which is blogging, stuff that Debbie and I both do, and how do you get started and all that. And then a lot of the questions too, I recall these people were asking about, like, hey, how did you quit your job and how did you take that leap of faith? Because there was a lot of people there that were kind of doing it part-time, right? Where they had their full-time gig and they just started a blog, and it was interesting that was a hot topic. And so I definitely want to speak on that because I know you've taken a leap of faith with just looking at life in general. Hey, it's too short. Let's do something that I want to pursue and that I love. First, let's talk about your past. Like, where did you grow up? How did you get into fishing? Why is this such a passion and a burning desire for you today to talk about fishing and to get more people out fishing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I grew up fishing from the time I was about 5 with my grandfather in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. So basically, both my parents worked full time. And from the time, before I even went into kindergarten, every summer, my grandfather took me with him and we went up to their lake house up in the UP, and he would bring me out in the boat and basically teach me how to rig my lines, how to dig in the ground for worms. I mean, all of it. And I'm just so incredibly grateful to him for being the original fishing mentor to me and for getting me out there with him. And, the interesting thing is my brother never took to fishing. I have an older brother. He's 6 years older than me. And he ended up getting more into hunting, really didn't take to fishing. I took to fishing. And so my grandpa just would refer to me as his little fishing buddy, and we'd get in his aluminum boat and head off on the lake. And I was always just completely entranced by how he knew which species would be where in different parts of the lake. He knew that the north end of the lake had lily pads and it was shallower, so that's where we fished for largemouth bass. And he knew that, in some of the deeper parts of the lake, there would be these submerged wheat beds, and that's where the walleye would be. And, and then he'd have me trolling for muskie. So I was just so, I had so much respect for him and all of his knowledge, and fishing just from that young age became such a special thing to me. And those memories that I have with him, I'll carry with me, of course, for the rest of my life, for sure.
I love it. So I'm guessing just from looking at your cover girl picture, you're probably 28 or 29 years old now today. So going back 20 years, going back 20 years, I'm curious, like, did you have a lot of other girlfriends that were into fishing? Meaning like, other 5 to, let's just say 10-year-old girl. Were there a lot of other young girls fishing in your neck of the woods or your crew?
There were none, Joe. There were none. It was just me. And, and I have to be honest, because when I was growing up, it was kind of a challenging time. I really didn't feel like in a lot of aspects that I fit in, just because I did have, when I was younger, I had a lot of guy friends because, that all the boys like to fish and I like to catch frogs and climb trees and build forts and do all that kind of stuff too. So, I mean, I was a bit of a tomboy, and I really didn't know any other girls my age that liked to fish. But, thankfully I always, had my grandfather and both of my parents actually would get out and fish. So it was definitely a family thing. And it was a way that we built all those family memories together on the water, which of course made it very important to me as well. But yeah, there weren't other girls out there doing it, and there really weren't any female role models that I knew of at the time to look up to. I'm sure there were, and if I looked hard enough, I probably could have found them, or if someone pointed me in the right direction. Yeah. But it was challenging in that respect, because I would have much rather, been out on the water in like a ripped up pair of old, Levi's tough skins or whatever they were at the time, and a sweatshirt than be in a dress and, playing with dolls or whatever. It was just, the outdoors was something that I loved from an early age.
It seems like it's getting better. I mean, just looking at stats, if you go back just even 10, 15 years ago, the demographics and all these studies they do with American Sport Fishing Association and the outdoor foundations, that it was, maybe 10 to 12, maybe 15% female that had been fishing that prior year. And now it's in the high mid 30s, I believe, last time I saw. So it seems like it's getting better, but I still feel like all of the female guests I've had, not, Chasten, she mentioned the same
absolutely.
thing. And she's only 20, I think now. And she said, when she was in early teens, I don't know that. I mean, she said she got picked on a little bit just because it was just different. And she's, a cute girl. And I think a lot of the girls that she were hanging out with a little bit younger, ended up going a different route into cheerleading and that kind of stuff. And she didn't. And she's like, yeah, I kind of got, kicked out of my old crew. And I was like, that's so sad. But I understand kids are kids, and there's always going to be little niches and unfortunately teasing and all that kind of stuff. It pains me because I got young kids now, and I'm already seeing it with one of them who's very similar, who's super outdoorsy and would rather be out there putting lizards in her pockets than lipstick. But tell me what's your sense of let's just call it girl power and females fishing now? Are you feeling like it's got like, hey, we got some legit momentum here? What are you feeling?
We definitely do. I think we've got some fantastic momentum, and we've got really some outstanding role models out there in our industry, Chasten certainly being one of those. And I think that, now with the presence of more women fishing professionally as guides, as captains, it's giving more and more of our young women, and another young lady who is just absolutely amazing, Christine Fisher. I mean, she's out there on the bass tournament circuit fishing from a kayak and just absolutely crushing it. And I think with more and more of these women, it's definitely sending a powerful message to the next generation that, hey, you can get out there and chase your dreams. And this is, the water is open to everyone. And, more and more women are getting out there and doing it. And, but also I think sending the message that, listen, regardless if you're male or female, it's not really about that. What it's about is you getting out on the water and just, really basically trying to be the best angler you can be if you're doing it professionally. I mean, for example, me as a guide, I would never want somebody to be like, oh, well, I'm going to book Debbie because she's a female guide. I would want them to book me because, hey, she's good at what she does. Mm-hmm. And I think that, there are so many really wonderful, qualified, and amazing women out there that are paving the way, and, hats off to them, because they are making an impression on the next generation. And I'm really, really seeing that momentum and that increase in and getting more young ladies involved in the sport.
I love it. Why did you become a captain? Why not keep doing the blogging and videos? I know you did a lot of stuff with Take Me Fishing. What transpired there to all of a sudden say, you know what, I'm going to go all in and be a captain, quit my corporate job and do this?
I think it was primarily just the fact that I really do like teaching, and I had been taking out a lot of my friends, trying to get them involved in it. You know, it seemed like I had a group of friends, you know, when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, I had some friends that, you know, were going through relationship challenges or just kind of like challenges with work. And they were always kind of, you know, stressed about stuff. And I'm like, hey, listen, you know, I got to tell you, fishing is the one thing that kind of, it really decompresses me. It's so relaxing. Like, let me get you out there on the water. Let's get out there and experience a sunrise, catch a few fish. And, you know, so I just realized that, you know, not only is it something that's, I just think great for people to get out and do because it's a healthy outdoor activity and it really does, you know, tend to put you sort of in a meditative state of mind a lot of the times. But I think too, you know, one of the things that was a factor in me making that decision to be a guide was just the fact that, you know, I wanted to teach people. I wanted to do this for a living. And I knew that diversifying myself was definitely going to be the way to go. And just because I get so excited just seeing other people catch fish and experience that first new species, or, you know, the sheer joy of, you know, getting their first fish on top water. I mean, whatever it is, it's just like, it's like it's me experiencing it all over again when I see them experience it. So I had a really good friend by the name of Joe Mahler. He's a fly casting instructor. And he was like, you know, you love this too much and you're too good at teaching people, whether it's writing a blog post that's instructing somebody on how to do something or getting them out on the water and showing them you've got a knack and you should really, you know, consider guiding. So that was how it all came about.
I hope you'll share real quickly your journey on this, because I get that question all the time. We see it on our Instagram messages. We hear it throughout the year where young people, let's just say they're in their, you know, maybe they're 18 to 25, either finishing school or about to, and they really want a job in the outdoor industry. And if you guys are listening to this, the last thing you should ever do is reach out to a brand and basically just say, hire me. And we get it all the time. And I feel bad. I wanted to like teach them a little bit better, but you're proof that you went out there slowly, but surely, like you created your own blog, right? You just started adding value to the industry and then you got recognized, right? And then all of a sudden, Take Me Fishing reached out, and then the next group reaches out. And all of a sudden now you're able to build a business a whole lot quicker by adding a ton of value, not just saying, hey, hand me this, hand me that. I don't know. I feel like we're getting bombarded with young people, which I'm so excited for because we want young people in there. But I think a lot of them are going out at the completely wrong way. Just like, hey, I graduated college, get me a job. I love fishing. Like, well, it doesn't really work that way all the time. Kind of talk about your journey and how this transpired.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think good things and sustainability and long-term, you know, a long-term career in the industry, certainly, definitely from my experience, does not happen overnight. So yeah, my journey was, I started a blog with a friend of mine called Bass Fisher Women. And this was going back, oh my gosh, it's probably been like 8 years since I started that, and maybe 9 years since I started that blog. Is it still there?
Bass Fisher Women?
It's not, because it evolved into SheFishes2, which is my current blog. But we started that, and it was just something that I was doing in the evening and in the weekends, part-time, when I had my full-time job. And I really just wanted to put some information out there about, you know, here's how you can set up a Texas rig. Here's, you know, because I had a lot of questions. Friends would come to me and ask me these questions. I really want to fish, but I need someone to take me. And it kind of, you know, broke my heart in essence. I'm like, why is it that a lot of women feel like they need somebody to take them fishing? Why is it, I had to ask myself the question, like, why is it they feel they can't get out there and do these things on their own? And that kind of, you know, inspired me to to do the blog and just say, okay, let's build some content. Let's put some blog posts out here that are instructional so that women have a place to go where they can interact on the blog, they can comment, they can ask questions and feel like it's a safe place to do it where, there's other beginners there and no one's going to, say that's a stupid question because no question is a stupid question and they can learn something. So spent, a couple years building that out. Yeah. And that's when somebody from Take Me Fishing, Elizabeth Bender, who was working on their marketing team, I believe she was one that originally saw the blog and reached out to me. And then I got connected with Stephanie Vettalaro and Frank Peterson. And they asked me to submit a proposal. And I've been blogging for them for, I think it's been over 6 years now, but it took a long time, to build that. And once I knew that I had the consistency of, okay, I've got a company that, is going to pay me to contribute content on a regular basis, I was looking at what other avenues do I have to diversify myself in the industry and how else can I teach people and, add value over the course of years while, building a business and hopefully building a brand for the long term. So, and it wasn't easy, it was a lot of nights of eating macaroni and cheese and black beans and rice. And, it was certainly a lot of, and also getting a lot of people in your circle to understand that, listen, this is going to mean a lot of nights of me, grinding behind the computer and really putting in the work and doing a lot of networking and, getting, putting myself out there and learning as much as I possibly can about the outdoor writing world, about the content creation world, about the guiding world, because, it's one thing when you're a recreational angler and you're out there fishing on your own for fun. It's another thing when people look to you as an educator and people come to you and they book a trip. It's a much different thing. And when you're guiding someone, especially, you have to rely on their, you have to work with them as a team and you have to cater to their skills and abilities to get them to have a successful day and also to ensure that they have fun, most importantly, because that's what's going to get them back out on the water.
Oh, yes. So with your current customer base as a guide, are they finding you from some of your blogs and your content, or how did you build up your customer base?
Yeah, definitely. A lot of it was through referrals. A lot of it was just, my first season, I was really, really fortunate because George Poveromo, who's been one of just somebody I so much look up to from a saltwater fishing perspective. I mean, he's an absolute legend. And, from the fact that he's so well diversified himself in the outdoor industry, from doing his seminars to his outdoor writing. And so he invited me to speak at his seminar series. And even though I was guiding freshwater, people became familiar with my name, and I got, slowly started to build up clients. And I had some friends here locally who were saltwater guides who every time they would take out clients on the flats, they'd be like, oh, well, just so you know, I don't know if you're familiar, but, Debbie Hanson also guides out of this area and she does freshwater trips. So if you're looking to do something different, you might want to give her a call. So most all of it was word of mouth. And that continues, I think, to be a lot of the case. And certainly doing podcasts like this is always helpful. But I think the content piece of it too is important because people do see your blogs and they see that you are trying to help people just, be better anglers overall, or maybe teach them something new that they didn't know, teach them a different technique or introduce them to a new species. And I think people really respond to that. And that's the one great thing about what we do, right? It's like, no matter how much you think you know about fishing, you'll never know it all. You can't. Anyone out there that says, I know everything there is to know about fishing is not being honest. So, there's just a lifetime of knowledge that I think we can all continue to learn. So
it's the never ending puzzle.
It is.
Extra pieces just keep showing up. So what percentage of your customers are female?
I would say about, I get a lot of couples. I get a lot of couples, which is super fun. I get a lot of husbands that will call me. So overall, I mean, I guess I would say about maybe 30%.
Okay.
I would like to see more of that. I would like to see more, women. I've had a few ladies book me for kind of like girls' day outs on the water where, I'll have two ladies out. And I mean, I love seeing that. I think it's fantastic. And I'm hoping that that number will continue to grow. But, also kind of backtracking back to your earlier question, I think that's another reason why I decided to get into guiding was that, there aren't a lot of female guides out there. And I think that, sometimes women feel more comfortable with another woman and they feel like, okay, if I do ask a question, if I'm still somewhat new to it and I book her as a guide, I can ask those questions and not feel intimidated or uncomfortable about asking.
Yep. So I'm going to change it to something a little more controversial. So we all agree that we want more females fishing. I've got young daughters, got a wife. I love seeing it happen. And on one aspect, we have people like you who are setting an incredible example, great role model. Now you've had mentors and now I'm a mentor to other people. What about all of this bikini clad fishing girls, whatever the term is you want to use? Any candid thoughts?
I don't want to judge because I feel like to me, I would never want someone to feel like, the water isn't the place for them or, we all come from a different place. I mean, me personally, I guess I feel my thoughts are, if you look at it from the perspective of anyone who's ever, been really successful doing anything in life. I mean, Michael Jordan didn't get to be where he is in the basketball world as a legend because he looked good holding a basketball, right? Michael Jordan got to be where he is in the basketball, as a basketball legend because of his skills and abilities. And I think that, my personal feeling is I would hope that people think about that as they move through life, right? It's like, you don't need to know everything. You don't need to, regardless of where you are in your fishing journey, whether you're a beginner or you've been fishing for years, the water is open to you. It's open to all of us and it should be a welcoming place. But if you're looking to be a professional, I think we should all just be thinking about we're professionals and are we adding that value? Are we teaching someone? Are we setting a good example? Are we, helping someone learn about conservation so that we have fisheries for the next generation to be able to get out there and enjoy? And really, anything we do in life, I think as people, whether it's fishing or not, are we bettering ourselves? Are we, I think that's the bottom line and the focus. And I really don't think, I just don't think that that should be the primary focus. It shouldn't be on, okay, what you look like or anything else of that nature. And, and I don't judge people that are doing it. If they're out there having fun and they're enjoying it, then I guess that's really what matters. But from a professional standpoint, I just hope we all hold ourselves to the right standard.
And that's coming from a cover girl, guys. Cover girl. I had to throw that in there, front page. Again, you mentioned Christine Fisher. I had her on a while back, and I asked her a similar question, and she's pretty straightforward with it. Because I could see it both ways. I'm with you. As far as trying to get respect, you're not going to get that much respect from real anglers. And even like for my daughter, I don't think it sets a good example for my daughter to have the entire focus basically be about sex and fishing. Not something I'm really proud to even have scrolling on my phone and have my wife come behind me. Right? It's just not. I don't I don't know. But at the same point, I know it takes a lot of different types of people to grow any type of sport, right? Michael Jordan, and then you have crazy man Dennis Rodman. It's very similar. You got some of these, bikini clad girls who are attracting some younger men that might not have been interested in fishing. Well, hey, this girl likes fishing. Maybe I want to try it. So I can see that part of it as well. But I'm always curious what the thoughts are from someone like you, who's, really, your name says it all, right? She fishes. You dedicated a lot of your time, energy to growing the sport in general, but obviously with a big focus on females, which I love. So how did this whole Real Talk thing happen? ESPN, right? Like is that what it is? It's your big time.
Oh gosh, I don't know about big time, but it's been fun. So yeah, back in January, at the end of January, the current or the previous host of Real Talk Radio here locally on our ESPN affiliate through Beasley Broadcasting was getting ready to retire and move over to Fort Lauderdale. That was Captain Rob Mody's, and I'd been on the show with him a couple of times as a co-host. And he called me up one day and said, "Hey, what do you think about taking over the show?" And of course, I instantly somewhat, just took a gasp of air and was like, "Oh my gosh, what, holy cow. I don't know, like every week being on the radio and it's 3 hours and, I've been doing so much ever since I started guiding. I've been doing so much on the freshwater side, and so many people in this area are so focused on saltwater, which I have knowledge of too, but, I'm not out there on the saltwater every single day like all of the local guides are here. So it was exciting. It was intimidating. But I realized this is a really good opportunity and it's going to take me out of my comfort zone for sure. But that's what life is, right? We're not going to grow unless we accept those challenges. And, there's a couple of people whose opinions and advice I certainly value tremendously. And I asked a few of those people for their advice because of their experience in the industry. And they said, you should hands down go for it and, just see how things go. And, and then the pandemic hit in March and, it kind of switched up the format because generally the format of the show has been, much like your podcast, you have a guest on air and they're sitting in the studio with you. And it's that banter and that conversation back and forth about fishing. So it required some creativity to get through, half of March, April, and then into May and June before we could finally have guests back in the studio again. Wow. So it was interesting, but it's been a fun ride. And I'm super thankful to so many friends and people in the fishing community who have been awesome about calling into the show and supporting the show. And I learned so much because we get a lot of guys that call in and give offshore reports, and offshore is certainly not something that I'm strong in at all. I'm still learning so much about offshore fishing in the saltwater world. So it's been a great experience. Definitely, like I said, it's had its moments where I've been sweating it a little bit, but it's been fun.
Real Talk Radio it's majority saltwater, right?
It is. It's just all things fishing. Okay. It's 3 hours on Saturday mornings here in Southwest Florida. It's the ESPN affiliate, so it's 99.3 FM, and so it's 3 hours where the local guides will call in and give fishing reports from all the way up in Pine Island Sound, Port Charlotte, all the way down through Marco Island and the 10,000 Islands. So it's a lot of information on the saltwater side, but we do have some freshwater reports that come through too. And obviously I usually try to give a freshwater update from my charters and my trips that particular week. So yeah, it covers it all, or we try to anyway.
So you do most of your guiding on fresh. I know you kind of do everything in terms of fly fishing, of saltwater, freshwater. You kind of know it all. If you had a day off, what do you prefer doing?
When I have a day off, I like going saltwater fishing, I have to say, just because I think so much of my time I'm trying to scout freshwater, and I'm trying to stay dialed into the patterns and what the fish are doing in the freshwater side. So when I get a day or 2 days to actually fun fish, which usually happens during our summer, which is our slower season from a guiding standpoint in the freshwater world, I really enjoy saltwater fishing, and I really enjoy the opportunities that I get to go offshore. Cause again, that's an area where I'm certainly, still learning, and I don't have much knowledge there. So whatever I can do to get out and learn more is always a good thing. And it's always a hoot to get out there and catch, some crazy big fish and fish, fishing the wrecks and reefs and just doing different techniques that you usually don't do.
And as much as I love bass fishing, there's something about, not knowing exactly what you're going to catch. And it could be a monster 40 plus inch snook or redfish, me personally. But then again, all of a sudden you start talking about 8-9 pound bass, and I know you've caught a 10 pounder or more. That's pretty awesome too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And there was a pretty, it's very awesome. And to me, it's just, that's the cool thing about where we live in Florida, right? It's like, you can go out in the morning and you can fish the flats if you want to and catch an incoming tide, but then head over to Lake Okeechobee or Lake Ixtapoga and go catch yourself a bass, at sunset. We're just that lucky because we've got so many great opportunities here. But yeah, I've had a couple really cool experiences associated with the 2 biggest bass that I've caught. I'll never forget. It was one of the biggest bass that I caught on fly. I didn't have a scale that day, but based on the length and girth measurements, it was over 9 pounds. And
Wow.
I remember that morning, it was actually the day before was my grandfather's birthday. And this was right after he had passed. And this is the grandfather that took me out fishing with him when I was a kid. And my brother had given me a bass pin that was my grandfather's after he passed. And that morning I took it, I put it in my pocket, and I had it out on the water with me. And then I caught that big fish. And
on the fly too, huh?
Was, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it was just like a really, really, really cool experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it was in the middle of the day. And I think it was either the end of May or the beginning of, it was the end of May. It was the very end of May, and it was right around noon. So, the conditions, by most people's bass fishing standards, it was hot that day. It was up in the close to 90 degrees, and it was, bright sunlight, middle of the day. But yeah, it still happened, and it was definitely a magical moment.
That's awesome. What about the other one?
The other one was a 10 pound, 6 ounce bass that I caught on Lake Ixtapoga. I was fishing with, Don Hatcher, who is a guide on Ixtapoga. And I was actually working on an article for Florida Game and Fish magazine about the Florida Trophy Catch program. And I had done my research and looked at the top trophy catch lakes in the state of Florida. And I knew Ixtapoga was ranked up there. And I saw that so many, Don Hatcher had so many people that, were on his boat and had caught trophy fish. And so I called him up and said, hey, I'm working on this article, and I'd really love to come up there and get the firsthand experience so I can really give the article its justice. And, so we went out, and it was just a really, really cool morning. And I remember it was kind of foggy, and I was driving up there. I got up, it was like something crazy, like 3:30 in the morning, and just drove straight up from the Fort Myers area to Sebring. And, as I was driving in, I think it was Andy Stanley was on the radio, and, there's some pretty inspirational message that was being played on the airwaves. And I get out of the Jeep, I hop on Don's boat, and literally it was like the first place he took me to. We got that fish that morning.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what were you using? I have to know.
What's that?
What were you guys using, live bait or worms or what?
Oh, we were using live bait. Yeah, we were. We were using shiners. We were using shiners that day because it was December 31st. And so it was, the last day of the year.
Wow.
And there was no better way to bring in the new year. That's for sure.
Heck yeah. Awesome.
I'll take a 10-pound, 6-ounce bass over a glass of champagne any day.
Why not both, Debbie? Why not
both? There you go. Why not both? Yeah. So it was very cool.
That is awesome. So I'd love to hear any advice you have for, let's just start with other females, regardless of age, that you mentioned earlier that maybe feel like, oh, I have to, have a man to take me out, or I have to have a guide, or I just don't know where to go to even ask the right questions, kind of where to begin. Because it seems like that has been a trend, that there are a lot of females that really do want to get into it, and there's some sort of intimidation factor or something going on. So what's your advice?
These days there are so many online resources that we have. I mean, takemefishing.org is a great one. Obviously, what you guys are doing with Salt Strong, you guys put some great content out there. I mean, there's a ton of resources online. So I think, for people who are just starting out, it's a great place to start. Just, do some research and find a credible online source. And if you're not sure, ask around. There's, ask somebody if you know somebody who fishes, use your network and certainly tap into them and ask them for their advice. But, these days I really feel like we have so many great online resources available that it's all there for us. It's just, are we willing to put all those pieces together and really get out there and do it? So I would say, use your online resources. I would say, if you can, find a mentor, find another, either a friend or someone who has experience fishing, and see if they'll, take you out to fish with them and get you out there on the water. And also, keep an eye out. I know right now it's challenging because we're social distancing and a lot of the seminars have been canceled, but when it's safe to do so, and we come out of these times we're living in right now, get out there and attend a seminar. Really, seminars are a great way to learn, especially when you're there. I know that Betty Bowman with Ladies Let's Go Fishing, she does some great saltwater seminars that are very hands-on, and she does skill stations where you can learn how to rig your own lines and basically do everything. And I mean, I think that's between the online aspect of it, finding someone to help mentor you, attending seminars, and just reading. I mean, the one thing I did from the time I first moved down to Florida from the Midwest, and I was like, oh my gosh, saltwater fishing is so exciting. I really want to learn more about saltwater, was just, it was picking up. And granted, this was, back in 1999, but I picked up, a bunch of books on saltwater fishing and just read as much as I could and absorbed as much as I could and just got out there. I mean, you can get out there and do it. And that's the thing. It's just really getting out there and trying it. And if you make some mistakes or you tie a knot wrong and you're out there on your own, it's not a big deal. You're going to figure it out. Don't feel intimidated by it, because we've got so many great places too to fish, where you can start off fishing from a pier, from a beach. You can start off fishing, in your backyard pond if you live in a neighborhood where there's ponds and lakes. We've got so many great places. I think the main thing is really just getting out there and trying it, and then just build on your experience from there. So that's my advice. And
then the final option, of course, is to hire Captain Debbie Hanson to go out there and show you the ropes.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Come on out with me for sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I really, really hope and look forward to getting more and more women out there on the water, and hope to see more booking trips and learning more about fishing for sure.
Yeah, because we tell people, I think a lot of guides don't know this. They think that it's like Salt Strong's like against them because we're sharing all this stuff. And we tell people like what we're doing in our Insider Club, it's a ton of shortcuts. We are trying to shorten that learning curve so much, but you still got to put in the work. And if you want to take it to the next level, meaning like really shorten the learning curve and like get, potentially years of intel in a day, hire a guide. And that means that you do not go steal his or her spots. That means you go out there and just see how they're doing it and just ask good questions. Maybe even tell them up front if you live in the area, hey, I live in the area. I'm really just trying to become better. I think that's fair to tell a guide. And so you're not going out and trying to burn his or her best spots, but you can learn so much by just even a half day with a good fishing guide who's into education. I know some are better than others, so I would definitely throw that out there. And one thing you mentioned too, because part two of my question, part one was for women, part two was for men. How what's the advice for men to get their wives, spouses, girlfriends into fishing? Because I think most men that I've met, they would prefer big time if their wife was into fishing. Maybe not as much as them, but at least it would make life easier if their spouse or girlfriend at least enjoyed fishing and wanted to be out there on the water versus having to leave the wife or spouse or girlfriend at home. Any thoughts there? I love the one thing you said about maybe even booking a trip for her and a couple of her friends to go out with a guide like yourself, just to get out there and have some fun. Because I feel like the men can sometimes be intimidating or short temper or just not have the patience, sometimes, especially as a spouse. So any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it's really just about getting them out on the water and letting them just have fun, right? I mean, no matter who you are, we all want to go out and we want to relax and we want to have fun. And I think anytime you put pressure on someone or make someone feel, and I know there's a lot of us who fish, myself included, where we all feel like, and I think a lot of times spouses may put on this sort of like impression that, oh my gosh, you've got to do everything right. And, instead of making it a fun day, it turns into something that
Yes.
where they feel like there's a lot more pressure being put on them. And if they don't do the right thing, that they're going to be, they're going to look silly or whatever. And I think really it comes down to, we need to make fishing approachable. We need to make fishing fun. And we need to let women know, we need to let anyone on our boat know that it's okay to ask a question, and it's certainly okay to make a mistake. I mean, I don't care who you are, how many years you've been fishing, you're going to get your tree hung in the mangrove if you're casting in the right places. Right. And, that's the thing, is just kind of like giving, I think a lot of cases, giving them permission, like to make those mistakes and being like, hey, let's just go out on the water, have a chill day, and don't worry about it. Like, I'll show you some things. If you make a mistake, it's not a big deal. But I think there are a lot of women who feel like, oh shoot, well, he wants me to back the boat trailer, and what if I make a mistake? Or, he wants me to cast right up there, and if I get hung up, then, he's going to be frustrated with me because he's going to have to go over there and pick it out of the mangroves. But, that's just part of the learning experience, and it's just part of it. And I think we need to be better about, just giving people overall permission to make those mistakes, because it's part of it. It's part of learning.
Love it. Cool. Well, Debbie, I'm so pumped that you said goodbye to corporate America. We are lucky to have you in the industry. And I know you're really I know you've done a lot already in the last decade, but really just, kind of getting started. I know you have so much more to offer, and it's cool to watch this whole journey of your growth. And just kind of seeing you flourish, and the whole Real Talk Radio, and just all these doors keep opening up. One, as I mentioned earlier, just so helpful, cheerful, and always just going above and beyond. So we really, really appreciate you. Where can everyone go follow you and subscribe and all that great stuff?
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely feel the same way about what you guys are doing, Joe, for sure. Yeah. So folks can just go, I am on the web at SheFishes2.com, on Instagram, SheFishes2, or at SheFishes2, on Twitter at SheFishes2, and it's the number 2. So yeah, folks can find me there, and all my contact information is on my website. So I'd love to hear from people. Certainly reach out, get in touch, and yeah, let's get more people out on the water and excited about this awesome sport, especially during these times.
Oh yes, and you're in Estero, right?
I am.
Okay.
Yep.
And so where do you do the guiding? Like, is there certain lake or?
Yeah, it depends on the time of year. But I do some trips up there's a lake called Lake Babcock up in Charlotte County. I do some of my trips for bass up there. And then I do some Everglades trips for some of the exotic species and peacock bass. So that is, basically about an hour and 15, as far as a drive from where I live and for my clients if they live in this area. But yeah, so not far. I mean, within about an hour to an hour and a half drive from this area here in Southwest Florida.
Very, very cool. Debbie will teach you how to fly fish for them too. So.
Yes, absolutely. And, real quick, I did want to bring up one thing that you mentioned about, going out and fishing and how a lot of guides were kind of giving you guys some flack for teaching people more about fishing. I think the thing is that everyone needs to remember it's not about GPS numbers at all, because it's more about, why are those fish there at that particular time? And I think that's a big part of, the educational process is there's a lot more to fishing than just spots, right?
Yes. Spots are good for one particular day, tide, etc. And that's right. The biggest. Everyone says that I've had, who's achieved a lot. They're like, the biggest mistake is just relying on your handful of spots. You're going to be so frustrated and so inconsistent. You got to dial into the trends. The why are those fish there during that day, during that tide. That's really when it all comes together when you figure that out. So I'm glad you said that. Yeah,
I think patterns are the key to becoming a successful angler for the long term, for sure. So study your patterns.
Yes.
Keep a log.
Whoop, whoop. Yeah, keep a log. I know you've written some blogs on that before. So everyone go check it out. We'll put links in the show notes, SheFishes2.com. And if you're anywhere down there in that Southwest Florida, definitely check out Debbie. Hire her if you guys can even get on her schedule. I know she's busy with all the stuff that you're doing, and then certainly listen to the Real Talk Radio there on Saturdays as well. So Debbie, appreciate it. This has been fun. Looking forward to seeing you at some point here in the future once all this craziness ends, and Luke and I will have to get down there and do some fishing and crash your radio show.
Definitely, Joe. Would love to have you guys for sure. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I truly enjoyed it. And yes, hopefully we'll see you soon once we get through this craziness.
Yes. All right. We are out, guys. Thank you. We appreciate you. We love you. And if you have any questions, we'll have this and links to some Debbie's videos and everything else that we talked about at saltstrong.com/podcast. And at the very bottom, you can leave comments and we will personally respond. We're out. Peace.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul. It was pain.